All right, welcome back to goat tushes in the wild. I don't know why they've all decided to walk away and show me their tushes. Everybody's looking good. Everybody's relaxing. Misty is on her feet. All right, so for those of you that have been concerned and worried about her, I promise you she's okay. I would tell you if she wasn't. I tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for those that are new to the channel, these are miniature silky fainting goats hanging out with Bobbie Sox, the barn cat. And they are in late stage pregnancy. We're very excited to be anticipating babies soon. They're looking like wide loads at this point. Everybody's udders are coming in. I do udder checks on a regular basis, just to wrap my hand behind their butt there, see it doesn't really bother them, and check in on that udder. Denali doesn't have much of an udder yet, which is interesting considering she's first up in the kidding pen. But sometimes they don't get their udders until the day they deliver, so not my biggest concern. She's clearly pregnant and will clearly be releasing the hostages at some point. We've got Lotus down here at the end, who I'm quite sure has decided to take the year off and not get pregnant. And that's disappointing because I would love to have babies from her. But I do have her daughter, Sock Monkey, here, who has clearly become pregnant. Sock Monkey is a first freshener. That means this is her first time being a mama. So her birth experience will be entertaining, to say the least. Generally speaking, there's only two ways it goes, either with a first freshener. Either they have a baby and the hormones just flood the system and they're natural and instinctive and they clean their baby, take care of it, and boom, everything's perfect. Or they're a little bit more like Miss Wren here, who had her first baby last year, and she decided that thing was some alien that caused her pain. She had her baby and then took off into the pasture and left it behind. Thankfully, we have the best matriarch ever, Miss Emma, who is not showing us her face right now. There you are, my pretty girl. Emma is the most maternal goat ever. She will clean up anybody's baby. She will try and nurse anybody's baby. She watches the babies. So she was there to help take care of that baby for the few seconds that it was alone before we got to her. One of the reasons that I have barn cameras up and that I stay completely focused during kidding season on all of the goats, and why I'm down here in the cold checking on everybody, is because even though I breed these guys to be healthy, happy, and to naturally kid, meaning, not to need intervention and to be able to do everything on their own, things like that, the Wren story, happen. Breech births can happen, even to the best of us. Knock wood, I haven't had too many in all of the years, but it can happen. And you want to be around for that. Last year, JC, who is looking enormous right now, as she lays down looking like a blobosaurus, she had triplets. And they were two big boys and a really tiny little girl. Those two big boys were trying to come out together at the same time. Everything was tangled up. There was no way she was going to be able to get those kids straightened out in her own birth canal. She needed a little assistance. Things got straightened out and all three kids were fine. In fact, I just heard from her little girl's family just this morning, which made me so happy. So, things do happen, right? Especially if you're having multiples, things like that can happen. And my goal is not to be helicopter. I'm not in there with them. I'm not intervening unless absolutely necessary, but I want to be close by. I want to at least be able to see it on the camera if I'm not down at the barn. And I want to, if I'm not home, which now that I have to be in the office for work, does happen, then I want to be able to know when it's time to head home. And yes, folks, I have hung up on a conference call and said, I have to go, my goat's in labor. It has happened. It doesn't happen often, thankfully. And in the 12 years I've been doing this, it's happened, I don't know, maybe twice or 3 times most. So, it's not very disturbing, but it is something that, I will do, right? Their lives are important. Typically, though, I'm standing outside the stall, very similar to how Mr. Hugo is right now. Look at that eyeball. That's me. That is me staring at a goat in labor while I wait for them to do their job and give them all the opportunity in the world to do it naturally without me poking and prodding at them. And then I'm just there in case. The other thing is, we do kid in February and March, and it's often cold. So I want to be here to be able to dry off babies, help them get warm. Once babies have arrived, I've talked about it already, we move the mom and the babies into our kidding stall so they can have private bonding time. So I do want to be around for all of it. But at the end of the day, they need to do most of the work themselves, because otherwise that would be a bad breeding situation if it's always requiring intervention. Those are animals I wouldn't want to breed. And I have taken animals out of my breeding program if I find that they are unable to kid naturally, because I do not want to propagate that in my herd or in my genetics. What do you think, Misty? I can't decide on Misty. So she's definitively pregnant. She absolutely has an udder. She's acting like she's, due any day. But we have 2 due dates on her because she went into heat after we exposed her the first time. She went back into heat and she allowed the breeding. And so typically that would mean that she's due from the later breeding, because if they're pregnant, if they're a month pregnant at that point, they generally would not allow the buck to touch them. She was exposed to the same buck, so there's no question about who the daddy is. If you haven't seen how I breed my animals, you can take a look for those videos. They're posted. But we only, we don't run it in the pasture. They're exposed essentially by hand by us, so we know exactly when the activity dates are and who everybody is, who's mom, who's dad. There's no questions there. So based on normal nature, she should be due at her later date, which would put her due toward the end of March. However, she is really acting and looking like she's going to be due at her earlier date, which would put her, February 24th-ish, which is 9 days from now. So we will see. I'm kind of thinking she might surprise us and go with her earlier date just by the way she's acting. JC, on the other hand, looks like she could explode any day. And she's not due for a while yet. Persephone is looking huge. It's hard to tell on camera, I think, but she's just got big round bump on her side, right? Don't be blinded by Bobbie Sox there. So, anyway, that's where we're at with kidding and breeding and some of the reasons that I do what we do and why I work with this breed. And yeah, by the time you see this, it's going to be the 17th, maybe, if I have my schedule posting right. So we'll be 7 days away from due dates, and that starts to get pretty exciting. So stay tuned. I will keep you all posted as to how everybody's doing, but I did want to just take the chance to say, look, Misty, despite everything, is doing great. She's up on her feet. She acts like she's, she acts very dramatic, let me put it that way. But she hasn't been truly down since that first time. We gave her all the supplementation she needed, which obviously did the job, and certainly was not harmful to her kids in any way, shape, or form. And she's going to get through to her due date whenever it may be. And we've got all the little dogs out here investigating. Bailey, Sophie, Hugo, everybody's here today. So I will see you guys at the next one. These have all become much longer than intended recently. Apparently I have the chatty gene going on right now. So I hope you're all doing well. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Enjoy a day like a barn cat. I will see you at the next one. Bye for now.